Picture the perfect coastline. Imagine the gentle rhythm of waves kissing the shore, the salty air filling your lungs, the endless expanse of blue stretching out to meet the sky. For millennia, the ocean has been our planet's great constant, the cradle of life, a symbol of power and tranquility. It's a world we think we know, a realm of vibrant reefs and majestic giants. But the deep holds secrets, and sometimes, the familiar face of the sea can twist into a mask of something terrifyingly new. What if the very water that sustains life suddenly turned against it? It begins subtly, like a stain on the horizon. At first, you might mistake it for a peculiar sunset reflection, an atmospheric trick of the light. But this color doesn't fade with the sun. It grows. A rusty, crimson blush bleeds into the clear blue, spreading like a contagion through the water. The waves that crash ashore are no longer white and foamy, but tinged with a sickly red, leaving behind a dark, ominous line on the sand. This is no ordinary tide. This is a warning, whispered in a language of poison. Scientifically, we have a name for this phenomenon: a harmful algal bloom, or what's more commonly and ominously known as a red tide. It occurs when tiny, single-celled organisms, a type of phytoplankton called dinoflagellates, experience an explosive population boom. Under the right conditions of warmth and nutrients, their numbers can swell from a few thousand cells per liter to millions. While many algal blooms are harmless, these specific species are nature's chemical weapons specialists, manufacturing some of the most potent neurotoxins known to science. The consequences are usually catastrophic. These toxins are indiscriminate killers. They attack the nervous systems of fish, leading to massive, heartbreaking die-offs that can stretch for miles. They accumulate in the tissues of shellfish like clams and mussels, turning these filter feeders into deadly poison traps for any bird, marine mammal, or even human that consumes them. The ocean, once teeming with life, becomes a silent, suffocating graveyard. The very air can become toxic, carrying the bloom's poison ashore on the sea breeze. But look closer at this crimson tide. The usual signs of devastation are strangely absent. There are no vast flotillas of dead fish floating on the surface. The birds aren't falling from the sky. The silence that hangs over the water isn't the silence of death, but something else entirely: a watchful, waiting stillness. The water itself, though stained a lurid red, seems to hum with a strange vitality. Poses a terrifying question. What if this time the poison isn't just killing? What if it's creating? Evolution is the most powerful force on our planet. It is a relentless engine of adaptation, capable of forging life in the most inhospitable corners of the earth, from the crushing pressure of the deepest trenches to the boiling acid of volcanic vents. Life finds a way. It endures, it overcomes, it colonizes. In the face of a challenge, nature's answer is not always retreat. Often, it is radical, bewildering transformation. So, what happens when the challenge is a world steeped in a poison that should end all life? This is where the true mystery begins, where science gives way to a chilling new possibility. In this toxic soup, where every drop of water is a death sentence, something is stirring. Something has not only found a way to survive but to flourish. It has embraced the poison, taken it into its own body, and made it a cornerstone of its existence. We are not witnessing an extinction event. We are witnessing a birth. An evolutionary leap is taking place right before our eyes, hidden beneath the waves. Imagine an ecosystem not just tolerating the poison, but powered by it. A food chain where toxins are passed up from one organism to the next, not as a weakness, but as a source of strength, a weapon, a building block for a new and monstrous form of life. This crimson tide isn't just an ecological disaster. It's a crucible, and out of this toxic fire, something is being forged. Something that has answered the evolutionary question posed by the poison waters. And the answer is terrifying. The poison isn't an end. It's a beginning. To solve the mystery of the crimson tide, we must resist the urge to scan the horizon for sea monsters. The most profound revolutions in nature rarely announce themselves with a roar. They begin with a whisper in places we seldom look. The answer to this unsettling vitality lies not in the giants of the deep, but in the smallest and most overlooked residents of the shoreline. We must shrink our perspective and peer into a world where the battle for survival is waged on a microscopic scale, because it is here, at the very foundation of the food chain, that the first move in this terrifying new evolutionary game is being played. Our planet is home to life forms that defy belief, organisms we call extremophiles. These are the ultimate survivors, thriving in conditions that would mean instant death for almost anything else. There are bacteria that flourish in the boiling water of geothermal vents, archaea that call lakes of pure acid their home, and creatures that withstand the crushing, lightless pressure of the deepest ocean trenches. Life's tenacity is not a hopeful platitude. It's a proven, scientific reality. And this relentless drive to survive is the key to understanding the dark miracle unfolding within these toxic waters. Remember the weapon of choice for our red tide algae, a potent neurotoxin. It's a poison designed for maximum efficiency, a chemical key that unlocks and breaks the nervous systems of its victims. It's what makes the water a no-go zone, a chemical minefield for any creature with nerves and muscles. For a simple filter feeder, an organism that passively sips the water for sustenance, a bloom like this should be a death sentence. Their entire method of feeding becomes a form of suicide, each gulp of water bringing them closer to paralysis and death. Meet the humble barnacle. These small crustaceans spend their adult lives glued to one spot, patiently combing the water with their feathery legs, filtering out tiny plankton. They are the definition of passive existence, the rock-sitters of the marine world. Faced with a tide of neurotoxic algae, they have no escape. They cannot swim away, they cannot burrow, and they cannot stop feeding for long. According to all biological logic, the coastlines should be littered with their empty, lifeless shells. But they are not. Instead, they have become the first responders to this toxic emergency. Here, evolution has performed a stunning and frankly terrifying feat of bioengineering. A new lineage of barnacle has emerged from the crucible. It didn't just evolve a resistance to the toxin. That would be remarkable enough. No, it has done something far more radical. It has developed a specialized, complex protein that actively seeks out and binds with the neurotoxin molecules. It intercepts the poison, neutralizes its deadly effects, and then does something utterly unprecedented. It repurposes it. The barnacle has learned to harvest the poison. This sequestered toxin, now rendered harmless to the barnacle itself, is shunted away and deposited directly into its growing shell. As the toxin molecules integrate with the calcium carbonate structure, they warp its color, staining it from the inside out. The result is a breathtaking, horrifying transformation. The once dull, grayish-white shells are now a deep, glistening crimson, as if they were carved from ruby or soaked in blood. Entire stretches of coastal rock, once drab and unremarkable, are now encrusted with these vibrant, alien jewels. This isn't just a change in color. It's a fundamental change in identity. These creatures are no longer just a passive part of the ecosystem. Each one has become a tiny, living fortress of concentrated poison. They are a brand new resource, a seemingly abundant and easy meal, shimmering with temptation. Yet they are a fatal trap. Any unsuspecting crab or fish that evolved to feed on barnacles would find itself consuming a dose of neurotoxin hundreds of times more concentrated than the surrounding water. The very bottom of the food web has been replaced with a beautiful, deadly illusion. And yet, nature abhors a vacuum. An entire ecological niche, a buffet of motionless, calorie-rich jewels, cannot exist for long without a predator taking notice. Evolution is a constant arms race. If a defense is developed, an offense is sure to follow. The emergence of this living poison presents a monumental evolutionary challenge, an invitation to the darkness. So we must ask the question that hangs heavy in the crimson water. What kind of creature would be desperate enough or monstrous enough to evolve a way to feast on these poison pills? What kind of hunter is coming for the jewels? Nature is an endless arms race, a constant back and forth of hunter and hunted, defense and attack. We have seen the defense, a coastline encrusted with beautiful, lethal jewels, each one a tiny fortress of neurotoxin. This presents a fascinating evolutionary dead end. An abundant food source that is also a death sentence. But dead end is not a term evolution truly understands. For every lock, somewhere a key is being forged. The question we were left with was not if something would come for these poison pills, but what it would look like. The answer slithers out from the crimson-stained shadows. It is not a creature of brute force, but of insidious chemistry. Say hello to a new predator on the block, a species of predatory sea slug, a nudibranch unlike any seen before. Forget the vibrant, almost whimsical colors of its common cousins. This creature is a vision of sleek, biomechanical horror. Its body is a pale, almost translucent white, but threaded with a network of fine, branching vessels that pulse with a soft, malevolent red light. It is a living blueprint of the poison it has come to master. This hunter glides over the toxic barnacles, its movements fluid and deliberate. It is an assassin perfectly tailored to its environment. How can it possibly touch, let alone consume, a creature that is essentially a solidified nerve agent? The secret lies within its own biology, a marvel of adaptive evolution. It possesses a unique organ, a kind of biological reactor sac, where it performs an alchemical miracle. It does not simply resist the toxin. It metabolizes it, breaks it down, and rebuilds it for its own terrifying purposes. This feeding method is the stuff of nightmares, a display of biochemical warfare in miniature. The slug clamps its mouthparts onto a barnacle shell, creating a perfect seal. It doesn't try to crush the shell. Instead, it injects a complex cocktail of enzymes directly into its prey. The slug's digestive juices go to work, dissolving the barnacle's tissues inside its own protective home. Within minutes, the barnacle is reduced to a nutrient-rich, toxic slurry, which the slug then sucks out, leaving behind nothing but a hollow, empty shell. But what about the lethal dose of neurotoxin it has just ingested? This is where the true horror of its adaptation becomes clear. The toxic slurry is pumped directly into its specialized reactor organ. Here, the neurotoxins are not neutralized and excreted. Instead, they are systematically refolded and concentrated, becoming exponentially more potent. This supertoxin is then stored in specialized stinging cells, called kleptocnidae, located in the pulsating red tendrils on its back. The slug literally steals its victim's weapon, sharpens it, and adds it to its own arsenal. This process is not without its side effects. The intense metabolic activity of processing the toxins gives off a faint energy signature in the form of bioluminescence. The branching red vessels that cover its body are not just for show. They are a warning. They glow with the very essence of the poison that fuels them, a clear signal to the rest of the world. I am made of death. It has turned the ecosystem's greatest danger into its own source of power, becoming a predator that is more poisonous than the poison it eats. With this hunter's arrival, the pieces of a terrifying puzzle begin to lock into place. We are no longer looking at isolated freaks of nature. We are seeing the framework of a complete, self-sustaining, and entirely toxic food chain. We have the producer, the red algae. We have the primary consumer, the crimson barnacle that harvests the poison. And now we have the secondary consumer, the predatory slug that concentrates the poison into a weapon. A circuit of toxicity is now complete. This is a self-contained ecosystem of horror, thriving and evolving completely parallel to our own. But food chains rarely stop at just two levels. The slug, now the most poisonous creature on the reef, glides with an untouchable arrogance. But even the ultimate poisoner can become prey. The arms race continues. The question now escalates. What kind of monster evolves to hunt a predator that is a living embodiment of concentrated poison? The answers we will find lie deeper, where the light fades and the real horrors begin to stir. The drama on the coastline was only the opening act. Every boom has a bust, and the life cycle of our toxic algae is no different. After a furious, explosive bloom, the algae die. In a normal ocean, this death is a gift to the deep, creating what scientists call marine snow, a gentle, continuous shower of organic matter that sustains the bizarre and wonderful ecosystems of the abyss. But this is not a normal ocean. As the crimson tide recedes from the surface, the horror doesn't end. It just sinks. A toxic blizzard begins its slow, silent descent into the eternal midnight of the deep sea. Imagine a world of absolute blackness and crushing pressure, a realm where life clings to existence by the barest of threads. Now, imagine that world being smothered by a new kind of snowfall. A thick, gelatinous, red sludge carpets the abyssal plain, burying everything. This isn't a gentle dusting of nutrients. It's a blanket of poison, a chemical attack on an ecosystem that has known nothing but stability for millennia. The native deep-sea creatures, the ghostly fish and ancient invertebrates, have no defense. For them, this is the apocalypse. But for evolution, an apocalypse is just an opportunity for a new world to be born. Where there is death, there are always scavengers. The bottom of the ocean is the planet's great recycling center, and a new, unimaginably vast food source has just appeared. The toxic fallout is a feast, but a feast that kills the diner. To exploit this bounty, life would have to not just adapt, but fundamentally corrupt its own nature. It would require a creature willing to become a living landfill, a vessel for decay. Out of the sludge, something begins to stir. It is not sleek or elegant. It is a shambling, brute force answer to a toxic question. Let us introduce you to the scavenger of this new abyssal plain. Think of a flatfish, like a flounder or a sole, but twisted by a nightmare. Evolution has thrown away the rulebook of bilateral symmetry. One side of its body is massively overdeveloped, a lumpy mass of muscle and organs, while the other side is withered and atrophied. It drags itself across the seabed in a grotesque, lurching motion. It is completely blind, its eyes having devolved into useless, milky spots beneath its skin. In the total darkness of its world, sight is a luxury it has traded for a far more valuable and terrifying sense. This creature navigates its world not by sight or sound, but by taste. Its entire lopsided body is covered in hypersensitive chemoreceptors, allowing it to taste the chemical composition of the sludge it moves through. It is essentially a giant, mobile tongue, mindlessly seeking out the richest concentrations of toxic detritus. It doesn't hunt. It grazes. It plows through the poisonous muck, its massive mouth indiscriminately scooping up the lethal sediment, processing it through a digestive system that is less an organ and more a biological blast furnace, designed to extract a sliver of energy from a mountain of poison. But such a lifestyle comes at a terrible price. This is not the clean, efficient adaptation we saw in the predatory slug. This is a messy, agonizing compromise. The creature's body is riddled with the evidence of its toxic diet. It is covered in swollen, pulsating sacs that glow with a sick, bioluminescent red light. These are not weapons or warning signals. They are sores, external tumors, where the creature's overworked biology shunts the toxins it cannot fully process. It is a living, breathing testament to its own poisoned existence, a being perpetually on the brink of succumbing to its own food source. This scavenger represents a new and horrifying stage in our toxic ecosystem. It is a living consolidator of poison. It scours the seabed, cleaning up the toxic sludge, but only by concentrating that poison into its own flesh. Each one of these grotesque creatures becomes a walking, lurching reservoir of incredibly potent toxins, a vast biomass of pure poison slowly moving through the darkness. The seafloor may be getting cleaner, but the threat is becoming larger, more concentrated, and mobile. This creature seems like the end of the line, a living pile of sickness and poison. It is slow, blind, and grotesque. What could possibly prey on such a thing? What kind of hunter would see this repository of tumors and toxins and see a meal? This is where the story shifts from instinct to intelligence. For something to hunt this scavenger, it would need more than just a strong stomach. It would need a plan. From the deeper, darker water, something is watching. It is not repulsed by this horror. It is cultivating it. We've followed the poison's journey from the microscopic to the monstrous. We have a toxic food chain. Algae consumed by barnacles, barnacles eaten by slugs, and the dead raining down to be devoured by grotesque scavengers. Each step is a new chapter in a horror story written by evolution. But our story is missing its antagonist, its final mastermind. We are left staring at a lurching, blind creature made of pure poison, wondering what could possibly hunt it. The answer is not another creature of brute force or blind instinct. The next leap on this evolutionary ladder is a leap into consciousness. Suspended in the crimson water, almost invisible, is the apex predator of this toxic world. It is a descendant of the cuttlefish, but it has become something far more alien. Its body is a fluid canvas of mesmerizing, shifting patterns, but its default state is the precise shade of the poisoned water around it. Its 8 arms and 2 longer tentacles drift lazily, tasting the water, sensing the world through chemistry. Its eyes, large and impossibly complex, do not reflect fear or hunger, but a cold, calculating intelligence. This is not just an animal surviving. This is an emperor surveying its kingdom. Cephalopods, like octopuses and cuttlefish, are the undisputed geniuses of the invertebrate world. We've seen them solve complex puzzles, use tools, and display remarkable memory and learning capabilities. They are masters of deception and strategy. Now, imagine that brilliant, alien mind being forged for generations in an environment where the only rule is master the poison or die. This new intelligence didn't just learn to avoid the toxins. It learned to understand them. It comprehends the entire system, from the bloom's first blush to the final scavenger's death throes. And what do you do when you understand a system? You take control. This creature is no longer a passive participant in the red tide. It is its active cultivator. We now believe it is the driving force behind the blooms themselves. These cephalopods purposefully stir up nutrient-rich sediments from the seafloor, creating the perfect conditions for the algae to explode in population. They are farmers tending to their toxic crops. They are gardeners of poison, cultivating the very environment that gives them their ultimate advantage. They are not hunting in the red tide. They are creating it as their personal hunting ground. Their mastery of camouflage has reached a sublime, terrifying peak. Using their legendary chromatophores, they don't just change color. They perfectly replicate the swirling, chaotic motion of the red tide itself. They become a patch of water, a trick of the light, a phantom. This allows them to hang, unseen, directly above their prey. The grotesque scavenger fish, blind and tasting its way through the muck, has no idea that death is hovering just inches away, watching with ancient, intelligent eyes. It is the ultimate ambush predator, a ghost in its own machine. Hunting the scavenger is a matter of surgical precision. The cephalopod descends from the gloom, its movements impossibly fast. It doesn't tear into the scavenger's toxic flesh. Instead, it uses a specialized needle-like proboscis, an evolutionary modification of its beak, to puncture a specific, less toxic point on the scavenger's body. It injects a potent paralytic venom of its own, then pumps powerful enzymes directly into its victim. It liquefies the scavenger from the inside, bypassing the poisonous tumors and flesh, and drinks the resulting nutrient soup. It is a clean, efficient, and intelligent execution. But the most chilling possibility is not what one of these creatures can do, but what they can do together. Could they be a hive mind? Cephalopods are known to communicate with visual signals, but in this murky red world, another sense dominates: chemistry. We hypothesize they release complex clouds of pheromones, intricate chemical sentences that drift for miles. Through this network, they could be coordinating their farming, managing the expansion of the red tide across entire coastlines, and orchestrating massive, synchronized hunts. We may not be looking at individual intelligences, but at a single, vast, distributed consciousness whose body is the ocean and whose thoughts are poison. This changes everything. This is no longer a random, tragic ecological event. It is a directed project. It is terraforming. An alien intelligence, born on our own planet, is actively reshaping the marine world in its own image. The red tide is its territory, its farm, its empire. And empires have a tendency to expand. With a thinking, planning mind now in control of this toxic ecosystem, the final question becomes terrifyingly simple. What is its next move? What happens when a mind like that decides the ocean is no longer big enough? We have journeyed to the heart of a new, toxic world. We've witnessed the birth of a complete ecosystem, from the microscopic algae to the monstrous scavenger, all orchestrated by a cold, calculating intelligence lurking in the depths. This is an empire of poison, efficient and self-contained, a perfect, horrifying loop of life and death. But no empire is content with its current borders. The very nature of life is to expand, to colonize, to push into new territory. The cephalopod mastermind has conquered the water. So where does it look next? For all its alien horror, this toxic world has been confined by one great, absolute barrier: the shoreline, the boundary between water and air. For a marine creature, land is a death sentence. The air suffocates, the sun desiccates, and gravity becomes an unbearable tyrant. To cross this line is to attempt the impossible, a feat that our own distant ancestors accomplished over hundreds of millions of years. But this new evolution doesn't have that kind of time. It is driven by an intelligence, or by an evolutionary pressure so intense that it forces the impossible to happen in a terrifyingly short span. The pioneer of this invasion won't be the intelligent cephalopod. Its soft body is a prisoner of the water. It won't be the deep-sea scavenger. It is too specialized for the crushing dark. No, the first soldier to step onto our shores comes from the crucible where it all began: the intertidal zone. We are seeing the emergence of a new species, an amphibious horror that is a descendant of the poison eaters. It is a creature born of the boundary, its entire existence a bridge between two worlds. And now it is ready to cross. Evolution has equipped this vanguard with a suite of gruesome adaptations. Its gills have been reinforced, folding into complex, spongy chambers that function as primitive lungs, capable of extracting oxygen from the air. Its skin, once soft, is now covered in a thick, rubbery cuticle to prevent it from drying out. And its limbs, once designed for scuttling over rocks, have become stout, powerful legs, able to haul its body against the full force of gravity. It is a living siege engine, designed for one purpose: to breach the wall of the terrestrial world. But its most terrifying adaptation is not what it has gained, but what it brings with it. Its body is coated in a thick layer of mucus, glistening under the twilight sky. This isn't just for moisture. It is a concentrated gel of the red tide's neurotoxins, a defensive and offensive weapon. Every surface it touches is contaminated. The sand it crawls over is instantly sterilized, becoming a patch of toxic ground where no terrestrial plant or insect can survive. It doesn't just walk on land. It actively transforms it, poisoning our world to make it more like its own. Is this a desperate act of survival, a single species blindly pushing its luck? Or is it a calculated first move in a planetary takeover? When we look at the deliberate, methodical way it moves, it's hard to believe this is random. We must consider the chilling possibility that this creature is a pawn, a biological drone sent forth by the cephalopod hive mind. It may be following invisible chemical trails laid in the surf, directives from its deep-sea master guiding its path. This is not just an animal looking for food. This is the first soldier of an invading army, and it is following orders. So now the final scene unfolds. The sun sets, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that are mocked by the unnatural red of the tide. The waves, stained like blood, crash on a familiar beach. But then, a shape distinguishes itself from the foam. It is not a piece of driftwood, nor a seal. It pulls itself from the water, its lopsided body glistening, its movements clumsy but relentless. It drags its toxic, alien form onto the sand, leaving a dark, wet trail of poison that sizzles on the dry ground. The line has been crossed. The barrier is broken. We have watched this world's birth and evolution with a detached sense of scientific curiosity and mild horror. We treated it like a story, a fascinating what-if playing out in the safety of the ocean's depths. But the story is no longer contained. It is crawling towards us, bringing its poisoned world with it. Evolution is a relentless force, and it does not respect our boundaries. We have seen what the crimson tide can create in the water. The question that should now keep us awake at night is, when the tides turn red and finally breach the shore, What new horrors will they wash into our world?